Hello, everybody. So we are the session hosts today, and we're also the speakers. So be patient with us as we get everyone admitted, and also sorry for the short delay. So we have a couple of people joining us as we speak, and as they are joining us, we'll go ahead and admit them. A couple of housekeeping things that we just want to talk about before we get started is we're going to automatically mute you. But you're welcome to ask questions. So there's a little chat box at the bottom ribbon, and we'll try to monitor that as we're speaking. But we're both from the 1900s, so be patient with us, okay? So we'll either answer it in real time, or we might wait till the end. We're just gonna kind of see how things go. It looks like everyone that is joining us is pretty close being in. Sorry about the chime. I could not figure out how to take that off. If anybody knows how to take off the chime and wants to put it in the chat box, you're more than welcome to, and we can take that off. So I'll go ahead and introduce us because, like I said, we're the host and we're also the speakers of our presentation today. Thank you for joining us. We are talking about thriving in college with ADHD, and our goal today is for you to leave with some practical solutions and some practical strategies for success as either someone that is a college student, if you're a professor, someone that works with college students, if you're a parent, someone that has raised someone up to be a college student. So things that you can do to help motivate and encourage your students with ADHD. All right, someone put in the chat, already our first conversation, how to, no one else can hear the chime. Beautiful. Well, we're fine hearing it as long as you guys can. All right, so let's get started. My name is Jada Bruce. I am a licensed master social worker. I work over at LSU, and I'm an assistant learning specialist over in the Cox Communication Center for student athletes. Prior to that, I was an intern in the sports psychology and counseling department with Christine Sotile, who is sitting right next to me, and I will let her introduce herself.
Hi, y'all, and thank you for being here. I'm Christine Sotile, and I'm the Assistant Director for Sports Psych and Counseling with the Athletic Department.
All right, so let's get started. I am going to share my screen, and we are going to talk about ADHD. All right, let's see. Give us a second to figure that piece out. Let's see more. We are going to share. And to share desktop. We're going to admit more people in. And then we're going to get our presentation pulled up. Okay, somebody hit me with a thumbs up if you can see our presentation. Anybody? Thumbs up? Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. So we're talking today about thriving in college with ADHD, and we're going to give you hopefully some practical strategies for success. Like we mentioned, I work more on the academic side, and Christine works more on the mental health side. So I'll be starting off with some academic strategies, and then Christine will talk more about mental health strategies. So college it's an exciting experience. It is a great time to just get away from home, start something new, but it can also be overwhelming for people and students with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. The transition into a greater independence can also bring up some things with academic pressure, social changes, and just transitioning from maybe living with your family situation into a new situation with roommates or living alone. So in this presentation, we are going to share some practical mental health, social well-being, and academic strategies for students with ADHD. So these are tips that both students and professors can use to help understand each other better. One thing that we definitely want to reiterate throughout the presentation is a focus on empathy and having, if you are someone that has ADHD, having empathy for yourself. And if you're someone who works with someone with ADHD, having empathy for that person. And we already introduced ourselves. But again, I'm Jada Bruce. I work with student athletes in an academic setting, and this is Christine Sotile, and she also works with student athletes in a mental health and performance setting. All right, so let's get down into it today. We are gonna look at what is ADHD. So before we even start, you may be sitting in this presentation because you have been diagnosed with ADHD. You may be here because you work with someone with ADHD. But before we get into it, let's just define it, and so that way we can all be on the same page. So according to the DSM-5, which is the Diagnostics and Statistical Manual, and it's what we use as clinicians to diagnose people. Um, People with ADHD have signs and symptoms of inattention and or hyperactivity, impulsivity that make it difficult to function on a day-to-day basis. So there are three types of ADHD diagnosis that someone could get. They can have the inattentive presentation. This was formerly known as ADD, and some people still refer to it as ADD. There's also the hyperactive and impulsive presentation, and then there's a combined presentation. And within those three presentations, there's also degrees of severity. So it might be mild, moderate, or severe. So in order to be diagnosed with ADHD, children up to the age of 16 have to experience 6 or more symptoms over about a 6-month period or more. And then adolescents and young adults, 17 or older, have to experience 5 or more symptoms, same thing, over a period of about 6 months or more. So we're going to review those symptomology with you. All right. Oh, somebody put something in the chat. You said, great. All right. Doing well so far. Okay, so first we're going to look at the symptoms of inattention, and I'm going to move this so you guys can see. So remember, they need to have, we're talking more about adults right now, so they would need to have 5 or more of these symptoms over a period of about 6 months or more, and it needs to impact your life on a daily basis. So we all experience some of these symptoms to a certain degree here or there, but this needs to be something that would impact your life on a daily basis. I'm going to go through the symptom list with you, and we could talk about it or ask questions. All right, so the first is making careless errors or failing to pay close attention to details. Hold on, we jumped over one screen. Sorry about that, guys. Another is having trouble keeping attention to tasks or activities, not listening or kind of spacing out when people are talking to them. Having a difficult time following instructions completely, maybe partially following an instruction, when it comes to either a homework task or an instruction from a coach. Having a hard time just staying organized, whether it is organized in your to-do list or organized in the space that you operate in. Having a hard time beginning tasks. So we just call that procrastination. We all procrastinate a little bit, but when we're looking at diagnosing, is this procrastination impacting your life to the point where you just can't finish anything? Losing important things, forgetting, if you're a student athlete, forgetting a piece of your uniform, your equipment, showing up to class without the things that you need to perform in that class, losing car keys, losing cell phones, things like that, being easily distracted and being forgetful in daily activities. All right, so we looked at our symptoms of inattention, and let's go ahead and look at our symptoms of hyperactivity. So fidgeting and squirming, just having a hard time sitting still, and piggybacking on that, just leaving in at inappropriate times in a situation, feeling restless and just always on the go, like you just physically cannot stop your body even though you want to. Being an excessive talker, um, certified yapper, I think is how they refer to it now. Blurting out answers before someone has finished asking. So interrupting people, having trouble waiting your turn or interrupting in conversations. All right. So if any, as a reminder, we talked about how adults 17 and older would need to have at least 5 of these symptoms present for 6 months or more that truly impact their life on a daily basis. And what we mean by that is it impacts your grades, it impacts your relationships, it impacts the way that you're able to function in society. Like we said, we all experience these things from time to time, but is this truly impacting your life? Within the academic college setting, ADHD affects 5 to 16% of students. And we know that students with ADHD are 3 to 5 times more likely to experience academic difficulties. That's the latest, somewhat of the latest data that we have. I do feel like um, that those numbers are probably increasing. All right, so how does this actually play out in college? So we looked at the criteria, we looked at the statistics. How does this actually impact a student with ADHD? So first, you're leaving home and you're coming into this new setting where you have more freedom, and you may not have um, the high school teachers that knew you personally, that were able to stay on top of you. You may not have whatever your home situation was, like your parent or your guardian who was able to stay on top of you and check on you and check to see if you did your schoolwork, check to see that you came home in time, kept up with who you were hanging out with and things that you were doing. So what that looks like is you just have more freedom, and sometimes more freedom is a good thing, and sometimes more freedom creates more challenges. Some of those common challenges that you might have with having more freedom is time management. So, when you were transitioning from high school into college, in high school, you had a set schedule. You may have gone to school from 6:30 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. and then went right to practice. And then from practice, you may have had family commitments, and you somewhat followed that schedule 5 days a week. In college, the schedule is not always the same. You may only have class Tuesday, Thursday. Sometimes your classes may be just, you may have all online classes. So then you don't actually have anywhere to report to, and you're having to self manage yourself. And that freedom and being able to figure out how to manage your time can cause some problems. Also, focus. In college, you have different things, different priorities that you have to focus on. You go from living in a home setting where your guardian or your parent may have taken care of a lot of things from you for you. They may have helped you keep your calendar. They may have done your laundry for you. They may have managed when your meals were prepared. And so you get to college now and you have to form all those pathways of I'm a student now, and possibly I'm an athlete, and I'm also a housekeeper, because now I'm learning how to prepare meals for myself and take care of myself. And your focus and your attention becomes even more divided than it was prior to. Procrastination can also set in. We talked about that being one of the symptoms that we look for when diagnosing ADHD. And so having that attention divided and separated on so many things can become overwhelming to the point where we just are like, we have so many things to do, we're just not going to do any of it because we don't even know where to start. And then if you have more of the hyperactive impulsive side of ADHD, we also know that college has just a lot more opportunity to do wonderful things, but also a lot more opportunity to to be impulsive. and to make decisions that may not be the best for you. All right. So we want to talk about what does the ADHD brain needs. So as we work to support our college students, we know that the ADHD brain it's built different. It functions different. People with ADHD have brains that are wired different, and that's okay. Being different is amazing. Um, One thing we know is that their brains do not have as much dopamine as brains that do not have ADHD. So, one way to handle increasing dopamine is through stimulant medication, um, which, it can be prescribed by your doctor, your psychiatrist, and is perfectly fine way to manage ADHD. But there's also some natural ways to increase your dopamine and get stimulation. One of those ways is exercise. So as a college student, when you're coming out here, and if you're a student athlete, you're already getting all the exercise you need. But if you're not a student athlete, forming some good exercise habits, and you might be like, I hate working out. Well, even if you just take a 30-minute walk every day to stimulate your brain in that healthy way. Another is eating nutritious food, which I know is something that could also be a challenge when you're a college student. But trying to avoid those processed foods and fast foods as much as possible, because that nutritious uh meat and vegetables and fruits and good carbohydrates are good for your brain. And then sleep. So exercise, good nutrition, and sleep, which is another thing that college students sometimes have a hard time doing, because you may be in school, you may be an athlete, you may be required to wake up at 5 a.m. for workouts and then stay up till 10 or 11 at night, either doing homework or hanging out with your friends or playing video games or whatever it is. Or if you're not a student athlete, you might be having a full class schedule and then a job that keeps you out till midnight, 1 in the morning, depending upon what you do. So figuring out a way where you can get, 8 hours, 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night, if you have an ADHD brain, would be so beneficial for you. Another thing the ADHD brain needs is motivation. So we're going to look at setting achievable goals and creating a reward system. So we're rewarding ourselves for achieving those goals. And then structure. So we talked about how when you leave high school and you come to college, you go from having a little bit more structured setting to having all this time freedom. So we need to figure out how to rein it in and get ourselves some structure in our daily life. Now, it doesn't mean that every day of your life has to look the same, but we need to kind of create some routine and some balance and some systems. All right. All right, so we're going to look at academic strategies first, and I'm going to kind of take you through the academic process. So, time management is the first thing that we need to look at as far as a practical strategy that a student can have to become successful. So, we can't even think about testing and taking notes and all this stuff until we know that we know where we need to be, right? So, the biggest thing for ADHD brains is to get it out of your head and relieve yourself of that mental load and figure out a way of scheduling that works for you. So, it might be a calendar, a paper calendar, it might be a digital calendar, but to evaluate what system as far as keeping up with your schedule works for you and what will get you to where you need to be on time at the right time in the right location. I'm going to skip over Pomodoro technique because we're actually going to watch a video about that next. And we're going to talk about body doubling. So body doubling is doing something alongside someone else. As an assistant learning specialist, this is one of the techniques that I use the most. So it's knowing that when you are going to do something by yourself, uh, we're we might come up with reasons, excuses, distractions to stop that process. But when we body double, we work alongside someone else. So it's a great way to manage our time and manage our resources if you have someone that you can work alongside. We're going to look at the Pomodoro technique next in a video.
Oh, brains. I just finished a Pomodoro. What is a Pomodoro? Great question. Here, how to ADHD dictionary. A Pomodoro is a short timed interval during which you work on what you intended to work on, and only what you intended to work on until the timer goes off, at which point you take a break. See also monotasking. The term is based on a traditional kitchen timer, which looks like a tomato, or Pomodoro if you speak Italian. And it was coined by Francesco Cirillo, who came up with the idea when he was a university student struggling to stay focused, which might be why a lot of people with ADHD use Pomodoros. Trouble staying focused is kind of our thing. Sometimes we take forever to get started. Sometimes we keep thinking of other things that we needed to do and doing them instead. Starting a Pomodoro gives us a clear signal to start working and stay focused while we work. We're still going to think of other things we need to do, but during a Pomodoro, instead of going to do those things, we write them down and keep working on the thing we intended to work on until the timer goes off, which gives us a clear signal it's okay to take a break. Francesco actually built a whole time management tool around this concept. Appropriately, it's called the Pomodoro technique, and you can check that out here. It involves breaking projects down into a series of 25-minute Pomodoros, tracking those Pomodoros, using them to plan ahead. But like most strategies, it's not inherently ADHD friendly, so the brains I spoke to who use it have adjusted it to work for them. But a lot of brains use Pomodoros independently of the Pomodoro technique in whatever way makes sense for them. Some use a Pomodoro to help them get focused on things their brain does not want to do, and then they just keep working when they get into flow because they find the breaks more distracting than helpful. Other people use a Pomodoro to make themselves take breaks from something their brain does want to do, like play video games, so they can practice self-care in between Pomodoros. Some people do mini Pomodoros, like 10 minutes focusing, then a 3-minute break. One even does reverse Pomodoros, a short time focusing with a longer break. Real tomatoes come in all shapes and sizes. Why not Pomodoros? So if we're having trouble getting started on something, we might ask ourselves, do I need a Pomodoro? If we think of something else we need to do during the Pomodoro, we can remind ourselves, nope, I'm Pomodoroing. Write the idea down and get back to work. If we need a little extra help staying focused, we might ask a body double to Pomodoro with us. If someone asks us to do something that isn't the thing we're doing, we can let them know, I'm in the middle of a Pomodoro. And if someone says they're in the middle of a Pomodoro, leave them alone. Pomodoros are fragile. We must protect them. So now if someone says, I'm off to do a Pomodoro, you'll know that they aren't just going to go eat a tomato. And if your friends get confused when you start a Pomodoro, feel free to send them this video. I'd like to thank all of our supporters on Patreon, especially our brain advocates. Because of your support, we get to produce content that helps all of us understand and communicate.
Okay, so those are 3 time management strategies that you can use. And like she said in the video, the system is as good as the person working it. So if you find a system for time management that works for you, but you need to adapt it to your own way, go for it. You got to do what works, and you have to do what works for you. So we're going to look at procrastination next. So we figured out how to manage our time. We have our calendar, we have our Pomodoro going, we're body doubling with a friend. But we get to a task that is just, it's too much. Like we just don't want to do it. We can't figure out how to get started. One thing that I'll do with my students, and also have small children at home who have to do homework, and we do the 5-minute rule. This is actually a cognitive behavioral therapy technique, and it means that we are going to set a timer for 5 minutes. We are going to start this activity that we really don't want to do. We're going to do as much of it as we can. And if at the end of 5 minutes, when the timer goes off, we're still miserable, then we'll stop. And 9 times out of 10, the 5 minutes is enough to get us going that we can continue on with the activity. But it also tricks our brain when we set that 5-minute timer that like, okay, it's only 5 minutes. I can do anything for 5 minutes. And then once you get into it and once you get into a flow, you're able to continue working. Another way to beat procrastination and stay focused is to engage your senses. So we talked about earlier about ADHD brains, we need that dopamine hit. So we are visual, we need some visually engaging things happening. Like if we're just staring at a sheet of paper that's black and white, we're going to become bored so fast. So take your notes in color pencil. Put on some soft background music that's not going to be super distracting. Fidget toys, I love fidget toys. Find something to do with your hands. Take frequent breaks whenever you are studying or working on task. Get up, shake out the sillies, stretch, do a couple of squats, whatever. So that way you can re-stimulate that brain and then refocus on the task at hand. All right, so we're time managed, we are studying, we're no longer procrastinating as much anymore. We're making it to class because we know where to go and when to get there. And we get to class, and what do? We have to listen to our professor and take some notes. So there's a couple of different note-taking techniques that could potentially be helpful for you. And I want to challenge you to pick one and then get out a sheet of paper, and you're going to use this. We're going to practice using this note-taking technique for the second half of the presentation when Christine talks. So I'm going to tell you what my favorite one is, and I'll tell you what my least favorite one is. There's 3 methods that we're going to look at today. The Cornell method is the first one. I'll be honest with you, the way my brain works, it doesn't necessarily work for my brain, but some people's brains may be organized in a way that it does work for them. So what you would do is you would take your sheet of paper and you're going to organize it into 3 sections. You'll have like a narrow section, you'll have a wider section, and then you'll have a footer at the bottom. And your narrow section is going to be where your cues are. So that'll just be like headings, most important information, just kind of like what you put in bold if you were writing a paper. Then in the bigger part is where you're actually going to take your notes. And then at the very bottom of the page is where you'll write a summary. So if that works for your brain, then that's the method that you would use. The next method, this is one of my favorite ways to take notes, is called mind mapping. So you'll have a central topic in the middle, and then you'll have branches going off of that topic. So let's pretend like we're in science class and we're learning about organ systems. So in the center, you would write organ systems, and then you would have little arrows going out, the lungs, the heart, the kidneys. And then off of the lungs, the heart, the kidneys, you would have little sub branches. So you might put on the heart, 4 chambers, on the lung, left, right. And you would continue to put little branches. You would color code it. If you're more artistic thinking, this note-taking style may work better for you. Now, if you're someone who doesn't, the third style is if you're someone who doesn't like to write or take notes, a great way is to just audio record your professor in class. So we have our 3 note-taking styles, and you'll pick one, either the Cornell method, where we subdivide into 3 sections, mind mapping, or just audio recording. And that way you can go back and listen to it. All right, so we've organized ourselves, we're getting to class, we are not procrastinating, we're taking notes, things are just working for us. They're doing great. We get to test day. Here's a couple of strategies that work for you when it comes to testing. Of course, we've already talked about it and the importance of sleep. So making sure you sleep well the night before and avoiding cramming for that test and staying up all night before the exam. We've also talked about the importance of exercise. So going for even just a short walk or a short workout before your exam, especially if you're someone who fidgets a lot. Answering the questions you know first. So when we sit down and look at the exam, or we're at the computer, and if you're at LSU, you're at the computer in Himes and you're looking at this test and it's so overwhelming, go through and answer the questions that you know first and build up your confidence. Making sure that we read instructions, read them multiple times, and then use your own watch to pace yourself so that you can keep up with your time. And of course, if you have a formal diagnosis, you can always reach out to your campus Office of Disability Services. And there's two other test taking strategies that I wanted to share that I didn't put on here. And this is one that I tell my daughter because she has ADHD as well. When you get into a test taking situation, if you start to feel that anxiety or that nervousness or just overwhelmed from the test, find the rainbow in the room. So to relax yourself, you're going to just look around the room and no one's going to know what you're doing, but you're going to find something red. You're going to find something yellow, orange, green, blue, purple, all the way through the rainbow. And throughout that process, you're grounding yourself and you're becoming more present in your space and relaxing yourself so that you can focus on the test. And similar to that, if you're in a room that's all white and you can't find the rainbow in the room, you can do a quick little body scan where you just squeeze your toes real tight and release, and no one knows what you're doing. And squeeze your hands real tight and release, and squeeze your muscles really tight and release. And by doing that, it could help to relax you into your space so that you can focus on taking your test. So I'm going to turn it over to Christine now, and you guys are going to use one of your 3 note-taking methods to practice as she presents about mental health.
Thank you, Jada. That was wonderful.
Thank you.
So much good information. I am a strong component of mindfulness. So let's just take about 10 seconds and take a deep breath. That was a lot of information. And for those of us who do need to space it, maybe just take a second or two. We're almost to the end here. We're just going to talk very briefly about understanding the emotional effects of ADHD. And in this short little part, I hope you will better understand how the core systems of ADHD affect those emotions. And Jada did touch on this throughout her, I guess because of her clinical experience, she is open to the emotions. But I hope you did recognize just the fidgeting and the inattention that all that works with your emotions, whether it's shame or, inability to complete things and confidence, it affects you in so many ways. And we'll talk about a few of those things. We'll also recognize common emotional challenges faced by students with ADHD, and we'll learn, hopefully, strategies to support emotional regulation and success in the classroom. Excuse me. So let's get rolling with the emotional symptoms of ADHD. Dr. Thomas Brown is a psychologist and an ADHD specialist, and he emphasizes that emotional regulation is a core aspect of ADHD. He says that it's not just an associated difficulty. He argues that it's not merely about attention deficits, but about impairments in executive functions, which is managing emotions. So if you think about, and I'm sure we've all been there, in road rage or just everyday frustrations, not being able to manage our emotions if we're overwhelmed. And this is how people with ADHD feel regularly: overwhelming shame, guilt, or rejection, just because they don't quite know what to do with how they're feeling. This rejection sensitive dysphoria, or RSD, is a condition characterized by an extreme sensitivity to rejection and criticism, which I'm sure they feel a lot, or we feel a lot, those of us who have ADHD. An example would be like a child struggling with group work because they feel criticized by peers, leading to like a withdrawal from the group or an outburst. If you think of athletes in this situation, not quite yet, and it's okay. And you think of not doing well in a game or a practice, it affects them so much, especially those with ADHD. And this influences how they react to social friends or to school, or like Jada was saying, with assignments, it just slows them down. It stops them, and they're not able to get things done. So knowing that and recognizing that in order to help them by playing these little games, mind games, basically, to get them focused and restarted, it helps a lot. So what is the impact on learning and social relationships? We have academic challenges, difficulty staying on task, and overreaction to feedback or perceived failures we just talked about. We have social struggles, which is misinterpreting cues that others give you. They're not as good as recognizing those cues that are coming from teachers, friends, or just in general. Difficulty maintaining friendships due to impulsivity or emotional outbursts, and you can recognize that. This can also influence classroom behavior that could be a problem. Interrupting, fidgeting, or defiance often is linked to emotional frustrations. So what is a management strategy? You see the puzzle pieces. How do we put these pieces together as educators, parents, friends, independents like us if we're have ADHD? We create a supportive environment. This may mean having self-compassion. This may mean having compassion and stretching that patience to someone that you're working with, whether it's a student or a friend or a child. Establish clear expectations, as simple as you can, and routines. Routines are key, especially in this college environment where there's so much to do. These student athletes have so much to do. And if they don't have a routine, they're going to feel overwhelmed, beyond overwhelmed. We need to provide structure and predictability to reduce stress. Time management is key for even those without ADHD, but especially with those of us who have it. We're going to foster emotional regulation skills, teach mindfulness and breathing exercises, so valuable. As Jada was saying, finding the colors in the room. Tell me 5 things you see, 4 things you hear, 3 things you feel, 2 things you smell. We use that exercise all the time for anxiety, but it's the same. ADHD and anxiety, the symptoms are so similar that they overcross. Model appropriate emotional responses. So just I do, we do, you do. People learn by seeing and observing. So if you're calm and you show them the appropriate response, they're more quickly can pick it up and use it, especially younger kids, but older can as well. Focus on positive reinforcement, praise effort, specific accomplishments. Wow, you sat there for 10 minutes and worked on your assignment. How awesome is that? Use reward systems to motivate and encourage good behavior. Wow, you sat there for 10 minutes. This gives you a break to go get a snack or run outside or go play or do something. Just take a break. So I thought this quote was sort of cute. Never in the history of calming down has anyone calmed down or being told to calm down. I don't know if those of you in school had ever been told to calm down. I know I was, and it never seemed to work. Thought that was funny. So again, this is just more management strategies. Promote communication. Just good mental health is open communication, open-ended questions. How was your day today? Where they have a chance to say more than yes or no. Collaborate with families and support staff. If you are in the younger grades, this is very important because they need to learn this stuff too, and you need to learn what works. We're all different. Everybody has different strategies that work for them. So the more we communicate, the better it's going to be. I thought this was interesting, not breaking tasks into smaller steps, accommodations in the classroom, but the flexible seating and movement breaks. Back in my day, we didn't have that. And I would imagine now there's probably a part of the classroom with maybe some balls you can sit on or different things they do, because ADHD is much more popular now than when it was when I went to. So I thought this was, this opened my mind to show what could help them with their emotions and just by taking a break through through normal school activities. So the key takeaways here: emotional challenges are a core part of ADHD and not separate from its symptoms. A lot of times we think it's separate. It's not. It goes together. So expect emotional dysregulation when you work with someone with ADHD. With the right support, students with ADHD can thrive academically and socially, and educators or we play an important part in fostering emotional resilience. So, are there any questions?
Let's see.
Or would any of you like to share your experiences with ADHD and what helps you?
Will these slides be shared? Yes, everything will be available after the presentation as well as a recorded version of the presentation. Would anyone like to comment in the chat about which note-taking tool they used, or which one do they think they would use, or any other helpful takeaways? Thank you, Megan. Mind mapping. I love it. Mind mapping is my favorite. All right, we have 2 for mind mapping. Anybody liked the Cornell method, or like felt like it made more sense in their brain?
So the Cornell method has always worked for me.
Mm-hmm.
know why. I'm like a structure person, so seeing it kind of like in columns and listed is always how I've done things.
I love that. I like how learning how different brains function and like how things work better for some people than others. What about as far as like if you are someone that has been diagnosed with ADHD, have you ever heard what Christine mentioned about just having that self-compassion and having empathy for yourself and realizing that sometimes you just kind of need to give yourself a break first?
Actually, yeah, I don't know if you guys can see me. I'm sorry, I'm at work right now, but I work in academic advising. Anyways, I actually have ADHD. I got it when I was I got diagnosed when I was in 3rd grade, but I'm actually finishing my master's in sports psychology and motor behavior now. So I think a lot of times I'm almost 27. A lot of times I compare myself with my peers. I took a year off after college to decide what I wanted. And a lot of that self-compassion, just be like, it doesn't matter how old you are when you enter something, it doesn't matter how young you are when you enter something, or just I just all throughout the school process, even kind of what you guys were talking about with the struggles of I remember when I adjusted to college, that independence piece and that socialization piece, and just finding a direction, even everything just seems like there's so much to do and there's not enough time to do it. So I think that's the empathy for that, and just really, I guess, yeah, I found this very educational and super fitting. Wish I had all this information when I was in school.
Stephanie, I'm so glad that this message really resonated with you. And one thing that I feel like working in an academic setting is just reminding people around me, and also reminding myself, and also as someone with ADHD as well, that we're not doing these things on purpose. We're not forgetting things to be malicious. We're not procrastinating to aggravate the people around us. We're not missing assignments because we want to. It's just sometimes our brains are just can't process all of these things that are happening around us, and yeah, so thank you for sharing your story. Any advice regarding the students who feel there is a stigma to seeking resources? Christine, that's you.
Any advice regarding See, I had to read it. I had to see it. I couldn't, so visual. So, we were talking about self-compassion. Stigma is so what other people think, and what really matters is who we are and what we think. All right. So there's this great book by Kristen Neff called Self-Compassion. I use it all the time in therapy. Okay. Parts of it, just how to love ourselves, which whether you have ADHD
So-
or not, it's
Oh, you're,
Oh, somebody's
oh,
on.
wow. Look at them.
Hold on, sorry, y'all.
okay. Another book regarding ADHD that I just
No, she did. She was.
People keep unmuting themselves. Sorry, guys.
okay.
Yeah.
All right. So it's the name of this one is the classic self-help book for adults with attention deficit disorder, which has some very good information. This is more of a self-help book than usual. This is a great one too, Taking Charge of Adult ADHD by Russell Barkley. But if you want to contact me or Jada, we can get you, if you need the titles or how to find these resources, we'd be happy to share them with you. But that's 3 right off the bat that I use regularly.
And Jennifer, I just want to piggyback on what Christine said and just say for when I was in college, that was over 20 years ago when I was an undergrad, and ADHD wasn't as prevalent back then. And I knew that I was different, and I did not seek any services because I didn't know how or where to start. And because I didn't, I suffered a lot. Even though I was maybe worried to talk to my parents about it or to talk to my friends about it, the only person that suffered was me. And I failed out of classes and changed my major because I I was just struggling to focus and all the things that we talked about in this presentation. And so it wasn't until I got older and I realized what was happening with me and actually sought like medical advice. That I started to thrive. And so I'm telling you this story so that I can say that when we stop ourselves from reaching out to someone or getting help, the only person that's going to suffer is you. And no one's going to judge you, and no one is going to think you're less than, and no one is going to think you're a bad person for seeking help. So hopefully you can take that information, and if it's for you or someone else, and encourage them to reach out and get the help that they need. You guys, these questions are so awesome. We are 1 minute over. Can you repeat the name of the self-help book you mentioned? What was the self-help book? Was it the classic?
Self-compassion or the ADHD? You mean I'm not lazy, stupid, or crazy by Kate Kelly and Peggy Raimondo. It was kind of hard to find. I go to Amazon for everything, and this one I had to go to another website. But make sure it has this cover because they had other editions that were not this one.
So, two things about time management. Wait, I saw something about time management. Someone said that they love setting timers. Awesome. Timers are amazing. And another was, I love using Momentum Dash. It helps me be productive and focus. It's $5 a month. I have actually never heard of it. So thank you for sharing. I'm actually going to look into this resource as well. Okay, one more question and then we'll log off for today to respect you guys' time. And also if you have to go, you are welcome to leave. How can counselors communicate with professors to help them understand what students need? I will say the best person to advocate for what a student needs is the student first. What would you add to that, Christine?
I would definitely, I coach students to talk to their professors. I think that's most helpful. If it needs to go further than that, counselors will write letters and help in any way possible. But I think just developing a relationship with the professor, asking him for exactly what you need. First of all, you figuring out what you need, because sometimes we don't know. But if you do know, make it really clear and just in your best, your best way developing this relationship with them to let them know.
I
Can't
think
think
that's
of
great.
anything else.
Yeah. Advocate for yourself, develop that relationship, and then,
Yeah, it helps in so many ways.
yeah, and encourage students to register with disability services.
Oh,
for
that's
sure.
true. Absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you all so much. We had a great time with you. I had a great time.
Great questions.
Yeah, great questions. And if you have any further questions, feel free to reach out to either one of us.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.